Guys, kalmado na ba ang lahat after the hype release ng Poco F6 series just a few weeks ago? If so, baka handa na kayong pag-usapan natin ang Poco F6 and F6 Pro kung alin nga ba sa dalawang to ang mas bagay para sa inyo. Kasi kung isipin lang natin better overall specs, syempre ito na Poco F6 Pro. Pero kung naghahanap kayo ng better value, baka mas okay pa tong Poco F6. And aalamin po natin yan dito sa video na to. At para sa mga Poco X6 Pro, Poco F5 and F5 Pro users, I have a message for you at the end of the video. So simulan natin with the design and hardware ng dalawang phones na to. Of course, with the Poco F6, we have a cheaper build quality with a plastic overall body. And dito naman sa Poco F6 Pro, this has a metal frame and glass back panel. So solid na solid ang build na to. Kung premium device ang hanap nyo, I would say, of course, easy choice itong Poco F6 Pro. And by the way guys, baka lang makulangan kayo ng information about the two phones that we're talking about in this video. Huwag kayong mag-alala kasi meron tayong full reviews of each devices and mapapanood nyo na po yan dito sa channel. Just check out dito sa channel natin. Pwede nyo muna i-check yung mga videos ko about these two phones before coming back here para mas maintindihan nyo lahat ng pinagsasabi natin. Na pagdating naman sa looks and design ng phones na to, I would say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, pero kung ako lang ang pipili, mas maangas tingnan itong Poco F6 Pro. Napaka-premium ng black na colorway and gustong-gusto ko talaga yung gold trimming dito sa camera module niya. But that's not to say na hindi maganda yung design nitong Poco F6. It's just that it's very minimalist and ayan sobrang simple lang talaga ng itsura niya. At the end of the day, kung tatakpan nyo lang naman ng phone cases na kasama dito, well, it shouldn't really matter kung ano yung itsura ng back panel nito. And still talking about the hardware, pareho pong walang micro SD card slot and pareho pong walang 3.5mm headphone jack yung mga phones na to. Pero pareho ding meron silang infrared blaster. So pwede nyo silang magamit as a remote control for your TV or other devices that utilizes infrared signal. Now, moving on sa OS ng dalawang phones na to, pareho sila naka-Hyper OS and Android 14. So wala naman kayong mapapansin na halos pagkakaiba sa dalawang devices na to, except for the AI image engine na mas kumpleto yung available dito sa Poco F6 Pro versus the Poco F6 na meron na tayong dalawang options. So syempre sinigurado ni Poco na yung mas premium device mas maraming options pagdating sa AI image engine. So kung kailangan nyo ng lahat ng enhancements na yan, of course, yung Poco F6 Pro, yung dapat yung piliin. Pero bukod pa doon, I think sa mga nakapanood ng review ko ng Poco F6, you are wondering paano naman yung advantage ng Poco F6 Pro pagdating sa optimization. Kasi kung mapapansin natin sa review ko ng dalawang devices, mas okay yung optimization out of the box para sa Poco F6 Pro. And what I'm talking about is pagdating sa gaming experience, kung saan mas na-unlock natin yung higher frame rates dito sa Poco F6 Pro compared sa Poco F6. And that has been a known bug para sa Hyper OS and MIUI devices kung saan kailangan pa natin i-clear yung battery and performance before we can unlock the higher frame rates. But again, sa testing ko na Poco F6, I did that, pero hindi pa rin natin nakuha yung higher frame rate, lalo na sa Farlight 84 and sa Call of Duty Mobile, while other creators naman were able to unlock the higher frame rates for those games. So maybe sa akin lang yung medyo problematic nung time na yon. So hopefully in the future, mas ma-optimize pa lahat ng Poco F6 devices. Pero again, kung titingnan nyo yung review natin dun sa Poco F6 Pro, wala tayong ganun na encounter na problema. So kung gusto nyo makasigurado na out of the box, mas solid yung optimization, of course, the Poco F6 Pro is the better choice. And that's because the Poco F6 Pro has been out for several months already. Kasi nga, ito yung Redmi K70 na lumabas last year. So kumbaga, mas matagal na siya out in the market, so mas optimized na talaga siya by developers. Kumpara dito sa Poco F6, which is also the Redmi Turbo 3 na lumabas lang just a few months ago and may bago pang chipset na Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 na kailangan pa talaga ng more optimization. So in terms of gaming on both devices, mas confident ako na mas optimize yung Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 dito sa Poco F6 Pro, also known as the Redmi K70, kesa dito sa Poco F6, also known as the Redmi Turbo 3. Pero para sa mga nakabili na ng Poco F6, wala pong dahilan para madismaya kayo kasi this is gonna be optimized sooner rather than later. So huwag kayong mag-alala on that aspect. It's just that mas mahaba lang yung lead time nitong Poco F6 Pro dahil mas matagal na siyang out in the market. Na pagdating sa display, you won't notice much of a difference between the two devices. Parehong maganda po yung AMOLED displays nitong Poco F6 and F6 Pro. So kung alin man sa dalawang to ang pipiliin nyo pagdating sa display, hindi kayo mabibigo. Now, where you will find a huge difference in terms of quality and output is the cameras. So magkaiba po yung cameras ng dalawang phones na to. But I won't bore you with the specs. Instead, ipapakita ko sa inyo yung actual output ng dalawang devices na to pagdating sa photos and videos. But let's start with the photos. So sa photos, noticeably mas saturated yung makukuha natin dito sa Poco F6 Pro and mas neutral yung makukuha naman natin dito with the Poco F6. Now, that's not to say na mas okay yung kuha ng Poco F6 because sometimes medyo may pagka-dull naman yung nakukuha kong photos with the F6. Whereas dito sa Poco F6 Pro, masasabi nating buhay na buhay. Now, I know yung mga purists out there would rather get the Poco F6 na may neutral colors kasi pwede pa nilang ma-adjust to their liking. But in terms of social media readiness na pwede mo lang i-upload right away without having to tweak the photo anymore kasi na-adjust na mismo ni Poco, mas okay para sa akin yung Poco F6 Pro. But again, this is just a personal preference and pwedeng mas magustuhan mo talaga yung neutral colors ng Poco F6. But overall, parehong decent yung quality na makukuha natin with the photos from both devices. It's just that hindi pa rin ganun kaganda yung image processing pagdating sa portrait mode. May sablay pa rin sa edge detection. And then pagdating naman sa selfie camera, mas angat pa rin or mas buhay yung kulay dito sa Poco F6 Pro versus the Poco F6. Now, sa video recording, you'll be happy to know na parehong 4K 60 FPS yung dalawang devices na to. And I would say parehong stable and wala tayong makikitang gaanong differences pagdating sa video recording dahil smooth na smooth yung dalawang devices na to. And sa aspetong yan, I would say malaking pogi points po yan para sa Poco F6 considering na this is cheaper pero we still get 4K 60 FPS na video recording. Something that we don't usually find sa mga phones at this price point. And let me be clear, phones at this price point na may stable na 4K 60 FPS. Kasi pagdating sa transient devices, they will offer you 4K 60 FPS pero hindi po stable yung video quality. So pagdating sa overall camera quality performance, I would say the Poco F6 Pro wins by a small margin. But again, it also depends sa preference nyo kung gusto nyo ba ng mas matingkad na kulay versus something that is more neutral with the Poco F6. Pagdating naman sa usapang battery, parehong 5,000 mAh yung battery capacity. Pero mas mabilis yung charging dito sa Poco F6 Pro with 120 watts versus 90 watts dito sa Poco F6. Now, the Poco F6 is still a better phone than the Poco F5 with 67 watts na fast charging. And again, dito 90 watts na tayo. So, may improvement pagdating sa charging speed. Yun lang naman para sa quick overview natin ng dalawang devices na to. Now, aalamin natin kung alin nga ba yung para sa inyo. So, kung gusto niyo talaga na mas premium na device and pang mas matagalan, mas solid yung build, I would say the Poco F6 Pro fits you more. Lalo na kung yung higher storage capacity ang kukunin nyo na may 1TB tulad ng nandito sa akin. This will last you for several years, guys. As in, matagal talaga kayo bago magpalit ng device. Kasi meron din itong 3 years na OS support and 4 years of security patches. The same with the Poco F5 naman. Now, kung ikaw naman ay nagtitipid talaga and hindi mo naman kailangan ng premium build and design and sapat na sa iyo yung budget na 20,000 para sa isang device na malakas yung performance and solid pa rin naman yung camera with 4K 60 FPS, then you don't really need to spend more. The Poco F6 will be enough para sa kailangan nyo. The 90 watts fast charging is really good enough and yung overall performance niya pagdating sa games, makikita naman natin na yung raw performance niya pagdating sa benchmarks is almost up there with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 ng Poco F6 Pro. So you won't really notice much of a difference pagdating sa overall performance ng devices. So para sa akin, this is the better value for your money in terms of price to performance. Kasi magkalapit na sila na Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 and yung babayaran mo is di hamak na mas mura kaysa sa Poco F6 Pro. So again, linawin natin. Kung meron kang budget and you really want something that is more premium, mas pangmatagalan yung itsura niya and yung feel and build niya, I would say the Poco F6 Pro is the better fit para sa inyo kahit na mas may kamahalan ito compared sa Poco F6. Again, sa Poco F6 naman, kung sapat lang yung budget nyo and hindi nyo na kayang i-extend pa talaga, automatic na yan. Huwag nyo nang pilitin yung Poco F6 Pro kasi sapat na to. Kung performance lang ang habol nyo, magi-games lang kayo, and in just a few years ay magpapalit naman kayo ng device, okay na okay pa rin to. Para sa mga magtatanong, Poco F6 or X6 Pro, of course, automatic na yan. Poco F6 po yung dapat nyong piliin kung may budget kayo. Pero ang Poco X6 Pro kasi, ang allure nun or yung mag-iinganyo sa atin na bilhin yon is yung presyo niya. So, at 13 to 15,000 pesos, of course, mas sulit yon kung performance ang habol nyo. Kung purely gaming lang naman talaga ang habol nyo and wala kayong pakialam gaano sa camera quality, the Poco X6 Pro is enough para sa hanap nyo. And again, it's just much cheaper than the newly released na Poco F6 series. So kung naka-Poco X6 Pro ka na, wala pong dahilan para mainggit sa F6 series dahil palag-palag pa rin yung performance ng device nyo. Na para naman sa Poco F5 and F5 Pro users, guys, malakas pa rin yung phones nyo. Huwag kayong masisilaw sa taas ng benchmarks ng F6 and F6 Pro. The Snapdragon 7 Plus Gen 2 is still really good sa Poco F5 and the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 sa Poco F5 Pro is still a really well-optimized chipset even in 2024 and onward. So I would say para hindi kayo mainggit or manghinayang na sana hinintay ko na lang to, appreciate technology. Huwag kayo mainggit kasi what you have is really good already. Poco F5, F5 Pro, X6 Pro, again, in 2024 and even for several years onwards, solid pa rin yan. Kung gusto nyo makabili ng mga phones na binanggit ko dito, Poco F6 series, X6 Pro, F5, F5 Pro, kung meron pa man, ililink ko po yan dyan lahat sa description box and bibigyan ko na rin kayo ng alternative links para sa China ROM phones na counterparts ito, which is the Turbo 3 and the Redmi K70 kasi mas mura yan usually and halos wala naman kasing differences ng China ROM and global ROM. Pagdating sa overall performance, ang magkakaiba lang talaga is yung software experience and yung mga default applications. But overall, kung China ROM user ka na before, you would appreciate yung cheaper prices ng Redmi K70 and the Redmi Turbo 3 instead. Anyway, kung nakatulong tong video na to sa inyo sa pagpili nyo or pag-decide nyo kung alin nga ba yung dapat nyong kunin, ano lang ba yung mag-like, comment, and mag-subscribe na rin kayo dito sa channel natin. And kung gusto pang matuto tungkol sa mga phones, may mga ililink po ako dyan, panigurado magugustuhan niyo yung mga yan. So hanggang susunod, ako nga pala ulit si Janus ng Pinoy Techdad. Kita-kita ulit tayo.